Hey everybody, it's Trey here, back with a video talking about recession. What does it mean? What does it mean for our lives? What's the definition? And what are some things that we can do moving forward to take care of ourselves and our family? Now, before we even get into it, it's very important to understand what a recession is and the definition of it. It's a buzzword that's getting thrown around a lot, especially in the last month to 2 months with everything that's been happening in the world. We've had war in Eastern Europe and a bunch of other things, both in Canada, the United States, parts of Western Europe. It's crazy for everybody right now. Now, in our particular case, if you were to Google the definition of recession and what it actually means, it'll tell you that it's 2 quarterly back-to-back periods where the GDP is in downfall. Now in the United States, they actually just announced in their second quarterly report that the GDP is in the negative. Now, they haven't officially stated that we're in a recession yet. Canada is in a very similar position. We've not made an official statement yet about whether we are in a recession or not. But what I will say is that if it sounds like a recession and walks like a recession and feels like a recession, I mean, you can come to your own conclusions. So here's a couple things that I think that we can do, not only to protect ourselves, our family, but to get through this next period of time. But before I get into it, I want to make this very, very, very clear. I am not giving you personal financial advice. Your finances and your financial situation are your own. They are particular to you. I don't know what they are, and so I'm not giving you personal advice on what to do with your finances. I'm just telling you some things that have been on my heart, on my mind, some things maybe I'm doing for myself and my family, and you can make a decision based on the information, the education we're going to give you in this video. So the first thing I want to make clear, point number 1 on what we can do moving forward is do not panic. It's incredibly easy right now as people to panic and think that the situation and the times that we are living in are unique to us. And the reality is they're not. Recession, periods of economic turmoil, and corrections are actually quite common. And in some cases, they can be a good thing. The reality is, and if we can just speak plainly, this was always going to come and happen at some point or another. If you take a look at the last 2.5 years, the reality is, you guys, we cannot be printing money for 2.5 years in the billions or trillions of dollar mark and not expect it to create some kind of bubble that needs to be corrected at some point. Now, of course, there's outside circumstances. There's way more factors to consider than that. But the market at some point was going to need correction. But on top of that, it's important to understand that these corrections have to happen, and they need to happen, and it's actually good for it to happen. But with that said, we also have to look back to history to understand that this is not something new. I think of, for example, my grandma. My grandmother was born in 1928. She lived through the Great Depression, the Dirty 30s, and then of course World War II came around, and the economic surge that war created actually brought the economy of Canada back. My parents, my mom was born in 56, my dad was born in 57. Not only did they live through economic turmoil with the wars that came in that period, but of course they saw the stock market crash of 2008, they saw Y2K, they saw all these different periods where everybody kept thinking the same thing, I'm sure, which is, oh my God, how is this happening to us? We're going to lose everything. What's going on? It's very important that you don't think this way. And it's incredibly easy to panic and start making rash, emotional decisions because of what's going on right now in the markets. And I understand, believe me, I understand. Most people right now, what they're doing is they're sitting at home, they open up their phone, they go to their mobile banking app, and they see their RRSP or their 401k dwindling before their eyes, right? Their savings accounts, the numbers in that are getting lower. The value of their home is basically, dropped by 20, 30, 40%, right? It's easy to understand why there's a feeling of stress, especially right now. So I understand where people are coming from, but it's important for you to wrap your head around the fact that this has all happened before and it will happen again in the future. So once you understand that, and once you realize that, it then becomes easier to work within that framework of, okay, how do we get through this? And how can we possibly even take advantage of that? Now, with that said, I'm not going to be giving you tips and tricks on the best stocks to buy and the crypto you should get. I'm not going to be doing any of that. The reality is the vast majority of people cannot afford to go and dump hundreds of thousands of dollars into real estate or crypto. Most people right now are just wondering how they're going to pay their bills and put food on the table. how they're going to gas up their car or their truck. And so those are the people I'm talking to. Those are the guys I want to help with this video. So that's the first point. Please do not panic. Do not stress. Do not make rash emotional decisions. If you don't wrap your head around that first as the foundation, everything else is going to completely fall apart. You can't even make it through the rest of this without getting that. So that brings me to my second point. Second point of things I think you can do is get a clear understanding of your finances. Here's what I think that people should start doing. Firstly, start developing a clear budget. What do I mean by that? Well, if you're a single dude, you're gonna have to get very honest with yourself, right? You're gonna have some hard choices. You're gonna have to have a conversation with yourself about all those weekends out, all that partying. But the reality is, I think that you should be sitting down and taking a clear look at your expenses versus your income. Money coming in versus going out. Now, how can we track that? Well, there's the obvious ones. How much money do you have going out each month to rent? How much money are you spending on food and groceries each month? How much money do you spend on gas and insurance for your vehicle and the maintenance on that vehicle and your payments? Is it leased or financed? Are you still making payments or is it paid off? How much money do you put towards your credit cards and your debts every month to pay those down? Do you have child support? What does that look like? Or daycare or childcare, right? What are these monthly expenses every single month that are do or die? They have to come out of your bank account. You have to pay for them. Once you figure those out, then you start to have an understanding of your budget, right? Now you can start to work within that framework. Secondly, if you're a couple, you guys are going to have to sit down and figure this out between the two of yourselves, and you're going to have to be very, very honest with one another. And you know, sometimes the husband says he spends more than he does or less than he does, and sometimes, you get what I'm saying. You guys have to have an honest discussion with yourselves about your finances, money coming in versus going out. What I recommend to all of my clients when I meet with them is, let's have an understanding of the money coming in. Let's look at your income. Let's take a look at side benefits. Do you collect child benefit tax? Do you have like a side hustle that you do that maybe pays you like $500 or $1,000 a month? What is the money coming in every single month, non-negotiable? And then what's the money coming out? And then we work within that framework, and then we start to understand from there. So you can do that by yourself, or you can get yourself an advisor or someone to help you. There's also tips and tricks and different tools that you can use online to help you with that as well too. But you must understand your finances moving forward and how much money you actually have. Because the second thing that I recommend that you do within this framework is you begin to attack your debt. Here's the deal. You do not want to have some crazy kind of debt moving forward. You shouldn't want debt to begin with ever, but you're not going to want a crazy amount of debt moving forward at all, period. Like unsecured credit card debt, unsecured loans, lines of credit, debts that are sitting at 8, 9, 10% interest, credit cards at 19, 20% interest rates. These things are going to cripple you, especially right now, if you don't get them taken care of. So here's some things that you can do to maybe get them looked at. Firstly, if you have the financial means and capability to handle those debts yourself, just pay them off. Pay them down one by one. Go after the ones that have the highest interest rates first, get those taken care of, and then start to pay them all off completely. Now, maybe you don't have the financial means where you can throw money at your debts like that. And if that's okay, that's okay. There are other ways that you can do it. Maybe take a look at a consolidation. What does a consolidation mean? It means you take your unsecured debts and you consolidate them into a secured debt, or at least a form of debt that has a lower interest rate than what you currently have. So for example, let's say I have 3 credit cards. They have $20,000 owing on all 3 of them collectively, and they're all sitting at 19, 20% interest rates. The payments that I would be paying to take those 3 credit cards and roll them into a loan or a line of credit is still going to be lower than it would be if they were still on the 3 credit cards. Does that make sense? One loan at 8% for 20 grand is always going to be a cheaper monthly payment than 3 credit cards for 20,000 at 19%. Also, if you have a home or something with equity built inside of it, you can secure a form of debt against that, which gives you an even lower interest rate, thus reducing your monthly payments. It's just these little things that where you can move things around to free up more money and bring it into your household. And then finally, cut out nonsense spending. Look, now is not the time to be getting fancy. Now is not the time to be spending money on foolish things and silly things. You do not want to be doing that right now. Maybe right now you don't need to buy that new suit. You don't need to go buy that new console. You don't need to go buy that new car or whatever. Maybe right now is the time that you start to squirrel a bit of cash. You get a little bit more into defense mode with your finances, or you just start to have a better handle on your money so that you're not putting yourself in a compromised position. Because at the end of the day, if you had to pick between that new television or paying your rent or your mortgage, I hope that you would pick rent or mortgage as the more important one. Just keep that in mind. Now is not the time to be foolish with your spending. Point number three. If able, take advantage of the situation. Here's what I mean by that. Some people have the financial capability right now to take advantage of the situation that's happening right now in the marketplace. Now, here's not what I'm recommending. I am not recommending that you go out and, buy stock X and like you throw like 40 grand into crypto and Tesla, and I'm not recommending that. Please don't do that. What I am recommending is that you start to maybe put some money into the market. Here's a good way to view the markets. The market is essentially a reflection of people's emotion. I know it sounds really simplified to think of it like that, but it is. It is a reflection of people's emotion. When people are fearful and they're afraid, the markets tank. When people are optimistic and happy, the markets tend to perform very, very, very well. And so right now, the markets are reflecting a state of fearful outlook on I guess world affairs and events and the economy and the job situation. And there's a lot of stuff going on, right? The list could take some time, but it's a reflection of that. And right now, the markets have tanked and everything is cheap. So think of it like this. If you walked into a grocery store tomorrow and you saw that toilet paper was on sale for 3 for 1, which is an oddly topical reference. I didn't mean to do that, but we'll carry on with that. You saw that toilet paper was on sale for 3 for 1. Well, what are you gonna do? You're gonna obviously buy more toilet paper because it's so cheap, right? You gotta stockpile it. You never know when we might have another repeat of 2020, right? So you stockpile all the toilet paper you can because it's cheap. Market works the exact same way. Everything right now is on the low. So there is an opportunity for people that are able to start taking advantage of that. And I would recommend even that there's an opportunity for people across the board to take advantage of that. Whether it's $500 a month, $1,000 a month, or maybe you're just putting $25 a month away into a tax-free savings account or $50 a month away into a tax-free savings account. You're taking advantage of the shares that you're purchasing into at a lower value. And that money will be supercharged and pay dividends when the market starts to bounce back, because it will bounce back. And of course, we want to be in a position where our money is working hard for us. We're in a fortunate position where we're able to take advantage of that return when it does finally come. Which brings me to my final point. Maybe you're not in a position where you can take advantage of it. I understand that too. I know I say, hey, let's put $25 a month into a TFSA, but for some people, $25 a month into a TFSA is the difference between, them putting that money in there or them putting food on the table for their kids. There are some people like that right now. And whether that's you or whether that's not you, my final point is, if you're in the market right now, don't get out. Don't get out. Every 7, 8, 9 years when there's a market correction and we enter a bear market, the conversation is basically always the same. Trey, should I pull my money out so I don't lose it? Here's the thing. The money that you have right now that's in the market, I hate to break it to you, but the only thing you can do now is ride it out. It's important to think of that number that you see going up and down, although right now it probably feels like it's only going down, but that number that you see for your account going down is essentially just numbers on a screen. It's a book value. It's just a reflected value of where it's at right now. And if you want to think of this as an example, if we had a real-time update on the value of our home, and the moment it started to dip a little bit, we wouldn't immediately sell our home off. No, that'd be crazy. But people will do that when they see that happen with their savings accounts, their RSPs, their tax-free savings accounts, or of course the equivalent if you live in the States. They'll do that. Don't do that. The number one way to crystallize your losses and make your money disappear for real is to pull that cash out. And if you don't believe me, go take a look at an index chart or an investment chart of 2008 and see the people that won versus those who lost. The ones who won were the ones who actually stayed in the market and they rode the wave. Now, granted, they didn't have a choice, they had to, but the ones who won were the ones who stayed in the market and they rode the wave. They dipped hard and then it came back up, and they actually were the ones who made the most money and the highest return out of everybody. Why is that? It's because at some point, there is a series of 1 or 2 days in there where the market will get its bounce back, its recovery period, and then it's gone. And it's very hard to time. And truth be told, I don't know anybody or any advisor or any company that can realistically time that well. Most fund managers can't do it. Most investment managers can't do it. So the average person with their $20,000 tax-free savings account trying to pull it out and then put it back in is not going to be able to time it, nor is it going to be action fast enough to actually make it happen. So if you're in, you have to ride the wave. Do not pull it out right now. And if that's a conversation where people are thinking they need to pull their money out, that's typically a sign of not being educated well enough on how this works. So please keep that in mind. And I hope that this helps some of you. Look, I understand that with everything going on in the world, there's some fears, there's some concerns. I get that. But I think together, and I think just by sharing information and education, this will help a lot of you. So stay safe. Keep your money secure, be a little bit more diligent with your finances, steward them more correctly, make sure you're not blowing things on things you don't need. Don't panic, and we'll all get through this together. I believe so. All right, bye guys, take care.